Hello, Pisces people. Thank you so much for being here. I'm really happy to be reading for you today. The plan for today is to get some Yuletide messages from Spirit for you at the time you find this video. So let's do it, shall we? So we are going to use this Yuletide tarot deck and the Seasons of the Witch Yule Oracle deck to get our messages. And I'm going to pull from the Oracle first to get our overall theme, and then I'll pull from the tarot to get more messages about that theme. All right, here we go. Messages for the viewer at the time they find this video. Yuletide messages for the Pisces viewer at the time they find this video. Okay. Candle magic. Finger the spine and caress thy lips. Light the spell spilling from your grip. I'm intrigued. So we're going to read about that. Yeah, I was going to say we're going to read about that after we pull from the tarot. But actually, I'm feeling like I want to read about this first. Gosh, isn't it a beautiful card? Wow, especially like with this arrangement here. It looks so pretty, doesn't it? All right, let's see what the tarot, what the guidebook has to say about candle magic. Okay. Keywords: intention, prayer, and hope. And again, it says, finger the spine and caress thy lips. Light the spell spilling from your grip. It goes on to say, perhaps more than any time of the year, the holidays are a perfect time for lighting the night with candles. They are carriers of your intentions, invocations, and hope for brighter days. It is common to light a candle for prayers and to represent the divine's presence in both religious and magical or pagan practices. The simple act of lighting candles reminds you that light can always be found even in the darkest places, and that light represents hope that all will be well. Candle magic is burning in your spread to inform you that your prayers have been received. Let's just take a breath on that. I'm going to say it one more time. Candle magic is burning in your spread to inform you that your prayers have been received. If you're seeking a positive sign for your situation, know that this is it. Yes, you must have hope that things will work out in your favor. Additionally, the cosmic forces that be are lighting a pathway for you to receive even more blessings in your life. Your spiritual support team is always with you and will show you the way when you cannot see it clearly. Receiving candle magic is a sign that you are headed for peaceful times. Wow. Magic tip. Carve an intention into the spine of a taper candle using a sharp object such as a needle or a pen. You can try single words like wealth or protection to make sure it's easier to fit on the side of the candle. Place your candle in a taper candle holder, and as you light it, say your intention out loud 3 times. Burn your candle down completely throughout the day. You can repeat the same intention for 28 days until your intention comes to pass. Wow. So I think if you have tuned into my readings before, you know that I rarely read like predictively. I often read more to bring the unconscious to the conscious. However, every once in a while, it's nice to get a little validation, isn't it? So I think definitely love the message that that came through the guidebook, that if you are hoping, wishing, praying, looking for some validation that you're on the right track, that blessings are coming your way, I think take a nice sigh of relief, because that's definitely a message this candle magic card has. Additionally, though, I think we're going to pull from the tarot to get more messages on this idea of like your manifestation process. So like how to bring your intentions, how to bring them from just being an intention to becoming a reality. So that seems to be the theme of this reading. Such a beautiful theme. And as I picked up this Yuletide tarot deck, I got the gut hit. Instead of just pulling cards, I'm going to do a 4 card spread where we're going to look at this has become a clarity reading. So if you've tuned into my readings before, you know the intention of my clarity readings are to unearth assumptions and to get clear about the reality of things. So the 4-card spread is going to be, the first row is going to be the assumption row, the bottom row is going to be the reality row. And the first column is going to be the problem row, and the second column is going to be the solution row. So I'm going to pull the cards as I explain more. So we're looking for messages for the viewer, some clarity on, like, so the first card is assumptions that you might be making or that you are making unconsciously about like why intentions that are important to you are not manifesting into reality. Okay, so assumptions about the problem, there it is. So it's not actually the problem, it's just assumptions about the problem. So Page of Canes in reverse. Canes in this deck are the swords. Okay, so now we're going to do assumptions about the solution. 2 cards wanted to come out. So the Knight of Canes in reverse and the Knight of Gifts. Okay, interesting. Not sure yet if the reversals are accurate. Let me just feel into it. So now we're going to go to the reality here. So the reality of the problem of why their intentions are not manifesting into reality, please. Oh, the lightning tree. Okay. So that's the Tower. Such a beautiful, fun depiction of it though, isn't it? And then finally, the reality of why their intentions might not be coming into manifestation. There it is. 3 of Candles, 3 of Wands. Or I mean, excuse me, card 4 is the reality of the solution, which we knew. Okay, this makes a lot of sense. All right, bottom of the deck is the 10 of Candles, the 10 of Wands. Okay, so first things first, I definitely think these are upright. I read reversals really intuitively, and they weren't giving, I just get like a sense in my belly, and I'm definitely getting a more accurate sense when they are upright. Okay, give me a second to like organize the cards, and then we'll get to the story of them. Okay, well, this is sort of wild because look at this. Candle Magic comes out, and then bottom of the deck is 10 of Candles. Like, you can't make this stuff up. Look at, she's just candles around her. And the reality of your solution, meaning how to actually more and more manifest your intentions into reality, is the 3 of Candles. So this is just like sort of weirding me out, and I absolutely love it. So let's get to the messages this spread is has for you today around this idea of becoming more clear of what will help you manifest your or ground your important intentions into reality. And I was going to start with this top row, but when I was like setting up the cards, I got a little nosy. And I looked under this 10 of Candles at the bottom of the deck, and I saw the 7 of Good Cheer in reverse. That is the 7 of Cups. Okay. So there's a bit of a paradox here that I want to speak out. And that is, so the 7 of Cups in reverse to me is this really beautiful card of detoxing toxic fantasy thinking. Okay. So the paradox is this Candle Magic card is like urging you to ground your dreams into reality, to it's giving you information about how to manifest your intentions, right? And the paradox that I have experienced and in learning in my life is that an important part of that is being with the reality of things. Okay, that's the 7 of Good Cheer in reverse, the 7 of Cups in reverse, because just like you, I'm a Pisces person, and as Pisces people, you I'm sure know, we have this ability to we can dream big, and our imaginations can really take over, and we can really believe our imagination. So there isn't like, we don't always have the same manifestation issues as other people, because some people really need to like get into their imagination, right? But being a Pisces person, I know that actually a huge part of me being a better manifester is actually detoxing fantasy thinking and helping me get into the reality of things so that I can actually ground my dreams into reality. Because there seems to be, the Ten of Wands is a pretty heavy card as it's depicted here, of just like heavy burden, right? So there's this opportunity here for you to alleviate heavy burden. So what's being said is like, have you ever heard the Abraham Hicks quote where they're like, if the cork is not being forced down, it naturally floats, right? So what they're saying is healthy, joyful living, magical living, beautiful living, manifesting our dreams into reality is actually the natural order of things. But there's a lot of burdens within our current systems, within how we were in the Western culture conditioned, that cause like the cork not to float, so to speak, as a metaphor, right? And so there's permission here to not be toxically positive, but instead to see what's in the way. And by doing that, you're not jeopardizing your dreams turning into reality. You're actually making it more possible. And it's making me think of A Course in Miracles. A Course in Miracles says, the introduction says, this is A Course in Miracles. It is a required course. Only the time you take is voluntary. Free will does not mean that you get to establish the curriculum. It means only that you get to determine the time you take. This course does not aim at teaching the meaning of love, for that is beyond what can be taught. It does aim, however, at removing the blocks to the awareness of love's presence. Okay? Removing the blocks. And this Ten of Wands is definitely giving me that vibe of a willingness to look clearly at what is in the way, at what isn't working. That is not you being a bad manifester. That is not you being someone who's lacking faith. That is you detoxing toxic fantasy thinking, being with the reality of things so you can actually clean up what needs to be cleaned up to alleviate this burden. And so that you can, we can't actually manifest without being in the reality of things. Like we can't be disassociated and actually manifest what we want. We have to be present. And the more that we have a permission slip, we give ourselves a permission slip to look at what isn't working, that allows us to be present with the reality of things so we can get insights and ideas about how to clean it up, how to liberate ourselves from the heavy burdens that we may have unconsciously been carrying. So with that said, let's get to the clarity reading here. So top row is assumptions. So these are things that this is beliefs you've been operating from, but they are not working, okay? So in the reality, or in the position of the assumptions of the problem, so this is what you're if it resonates, of course, is what you're unconsciously, the belief you're operating out of as to why you may not be manifesting your intentions. And it seems to be kind of like an icky outside force. Page of Canes, Page of Swords. There's different ways to read it, but I mean, there's different ways to read it, but I guess I'm saying that because I don't often read like outside inside energy. I like to, unless it's screaming at me. Okay. And I guess it is screaming at me here that there's some kind sort of like it feels like an energy vampire and you're like aware of it or something like that. Maybe it's a boss, maybe it's an old friend who is like watching your Instagram stories or something. Maybe it's an intimate partner. There's like a immature sort of energy vampire, like in different readings, this card might give me a different vibe, right? But in this reading, do you see how like this young girl is like out in the snow? She doesn't have any boots on. She doesn't even have a jacket on. And so there's like this immaturity this immature energy that's coming through. You know, when read positively, pages to me are often like this beautiful, like beginner's mind card, where it's like a willingness to have beginner's mind in order to work towards mastery, right? That is definitely not the vibe I'm getting here. I'm just getting immaturity. So it seems to me that there is some immaturity around you. You are aware of it. You feel like it is the problem. The reality, and I think you're picking up on something somewhat accurate, because the reality of the problem as to why you're not manifesting your intentions is the lightning tree. It is the tower. So put another way, something in your life, likely this relationship, is not on solid footing. Okay? I think what might need to be really processed is, it seems like maybe instead of getting really real about that reality with yourself, and then therefore the choices you're going to make, so like detoxing that fantasy thinking, I wonder if you might be just like constantly, or more often than not, trying to blame this person, this connection, or save this person and this connection, instead of really looking at how there might not be some solid ground there, how this relationship might not be based on healthy principles. Because when we go to the assumption of the solution, you have 2 knight cards. So there's telling me that you feel like you have to take action. You know, knights to me are often like the action cards. And you've got the Knight of Canes and the Knight of Gifts. So that's the Knight of Swords and the Knight of Pentacles. So it's kind of telling me like and I think you're almost like at war with yourself, because the Knight of Canes is like this fast sort of energy, almost cutting, right? And the Knight of Pentacles is the slowest knight. In a beautiful sense, when it is giving me different vibes, it's like the knight of like building things that last, right? And so, but in this sense, in the realm of assumptions where you're operating under these beliefs that aren't working, it's like I feel like you're trying to, this immature force that's in your life, you're trying to like counteract it with your action. And there's a war within yourself about how to act. So I almost wonder if like sometimes you like react and act out to this force. So let's say this force is your partner, and you're aware that there's, you know, a lot of emotional immaturity in this person. And so sometimes you're like really cutting and quick and fast to them. And then sometimes you just like withdraw and don't try to change anything. And you're like, well, change takes time and stuff like that, which all those things are true. But when we've got the 10 of Wands showing up as heavy burden, and under it is this opportunity to detox fantasy thinking, I think that's not like the reality of things. So the top row feels like maybe a little more of a coping mechanism sort of situation that is not working. And let's just take a breath on that, because that's like not easy to hear. But I will say I can resonate with this journey. And although messages like that aren't necessarily easy to hear, they also are liberating, because it's not any fun to continually operate out of assumptions that aren't working, especially when it's on such important matters as manifesting your important dreams into reality. So let's talk about the bottom row then, because I think it's, the message is very cohesive. I think there is this idea of recognizing the heavy burdens in your life, likely because of this energy vampire force that's around you, this emotionally immature force, recognizing that this push-pull energy within you to try to almost buffer it is not working, but instead there's this idea of detoxing fantasy thinking around this relationship, okay? Because that's where it's like, we don't want to detox fantasy thinking around our visions and values, but we do need to detox fantasy thinking around what is working and what isn't, around the reality of our life, around the reality of who people are showing us that they are, around the reality of how we are showing up, around the reality of patterns of behavior, right? So it's like knowing when fantasy thinking is healthy and knowing when it isn't. I've come to realize in my life that when I am using fantasy thinking to emotionally regulate, it is almost never healthy. When I'm using fantasy thinking to get clear on my next steps, to get more clear on my visions and values, to be in the joyfulness of imagination, that's when it's really healthy. Can you feel the difference in that? So if I'm using fantasy thinking in a relationship, I more and more am catching myself and realizing that isn't healthy, because what that's doing is putting all this pressure on the relationship. It's like believing in the potential instead of the reality of things, and we don't have any control over anybody else's potential. Do you know what I mean? And that is a fantasy thought. I mean, this is a huge fantasy thought that I've been detoxing, is I really thought I could rescue people. I thought I could save people. I thought I could help people. And of course you can be supportive force, but ultimately we have zero chance, it's an impossibility that we can change anybody. And so when we have fantasy thinking in relationships, that is never healthy. You know what I'm saying? And why is relationships coming up so strongly here when we're talking about dreaming big and how to manifest your dreams into reality? Well, it's been my experience that intentions, like you can do affirmations until you're blue in the face, right? And if you are showing up in relationships in a way that is not healthy, that is always going to trump the affirmations. So I'm not saying don't do affirmations. I'm not saying intention work and intention rituals aren't important. They are. But if we're also not looking at the reality of how we're showing up in relationships, that is going to be a problem when it comes to manifestation, because it's been my experience, and I've come to realize that nothing trumps that in terms of how we're vibrating to the universe, because it's telling the universe how we're willing to exchange energy, right? So if we're putting up with some toxicity and we're trying to like cope with it, by being reactive and then withdrawn and by fantasy thinking, ultimately we're still in 10 of cups, we're still in heavy burden, and that is what we're emanating to the universe, right? No matter what affirmations we do about our dreams and intentions, this is what we're emanating. And so that's what we have to clean up, so that the intentions that are ours to manifest and the dreams and rewards and blessings that are ours to receive can get to us, right? Because it can't get through our own burden, frankly, right? So when it comes to the reality, there is a call here. The reality of the problem is something is not on a solid foundation. And the reality of the solution is really beautiful. It's the Three of Candles, the Three of Wands, which to me is always like this beautiful surveying your options card. So by that, I don't necessarily mean like let's say up here, this is describing an intimate partner, okay? I'm not saying like go out and try to survey your options and find a new partner right away. This card to me always means just like getting out of survival mode, because when we're in survival mode, I think this actually happens quite literally, like our peripheral vision narrows. And I think that is actually like when we're in fight or flight, freeze or fawn, that actually happens physically, biologically, because it's our body's way of like, okay, you got to focus, you got to get out of here kind of thing. But I think it's also like a metaphor, right? When we feel we're in survival mode, or we quite literally are in survival mode, we don't see all the options available to us about where we could live or how we could make more money or how we could do this, that, or the other thing. And that is the energy that is needed to allow your dreams to manifest and to liberate yourself from this heavy burden, is this willingness to see things clearly, to not emotionally cope by going into fantasy thinking, to correct things at the foundational level, and then to survey your options baby step by baby step of how you can baby step by baby step mold and tweak and change to liberate yourself from heavy burden. And by doing that, not only will you have more capacities to survey your options in terms of like the art you want to make and the things you want to create and the dreams you have about what's going to come to be as a result, but you'll also just be emanating a lighter version of yourself that will be able to like allow the universe to grant you the rewards, the blessings, etc. that are due to you. Does that make sense? Let's take a breath. I feel like it's so powerful. But as with a lot of my messages, they aren't always easy to hear. And that seems to be because I'm reading for a very particular collective who has an amount of capacity that most people do not. And that's because of your earnestness, your kindness, the healing work that you've already done. It's so powerful and it's so healing. So as with all my messages, even when they aren't necessarily like, oh, happy, I get a really positive vibe. Because, well, one reason is because I always think of like the Sun card. And as I'm saying this, I'm just going to shuffle and get one final message from the Yule Oracle for you. But the Sun card in the tarot is one of the happiest cards in the deck. And the reason I love that is because it's not toxic positivity happy. It's happy because it expresses that there's been a willingness to illuminate dark corners. Okay. So it's like earned happiness. It's earned joyfulness because you've based your life on principles that actually work and that you've more and more aligned yourself to those principles. It's like what I said from A Course in Miracles. You do not get to establish the curriculum. So that's like, in my opinion, Mama God being like, you don't get to decide the principles that work, but you can decide, of course, it's up to you to decide if you're going to turn towards those principles or turn away from those principles in delusion and defense, right? And P.S., my husband and I just recently started a channel that's based on the Course in Miracles where we read short portions of it and then we discuss it. So if you're interested in that, you'll find that linked up in the description box of this video. It's been a huge part of my healing journey. I've studied it for about 15 years now. And it's really all about just cleaning up things at the foundation, looking at what's in the way, removing those blocks so that you can get what is due to you. It's really kind of aligns beautifully with this message. And oh my God, I love this. So you got turning inward. It's card 40, and you can't really make this up because that's obviously a 4 number. 4s to me always represent foundations. And that's exactly what's being said here. Like getting to looking at your foundations of relationships, of this, that, and the other thing, and making sure they're based on healthy principles. So I just love it. So we'll read this to finish up this reading, but here it says, inside this veil of bone and flesh, I lay my soul to sleep. All the truths within thy breath have come to greet me. So I just want to take, like, the imagery of this card seems a little scary, right? But all I think it's depicting is shadow work. It's just depicting bringing things from the unconscious to the conscious so that so that we know what to do about them, so we can figure out our life. You know what I mean? There's that quote from Carl Jung. What is it? Something like, until the unconscious is made conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate, right? So there's such power in looking at our shadow. And I mean, I guess it just piggybacks beautifully off of what I just said with the Sun card, where why is the Sun card so happy? It's not because it's fantasy thinking happy. It's because it's illuminating all the dark corners of our psyche, and it's things are based on solid principles and solid ground. So I love this as a final message for you, you strong, beautiful soul. Let's read from the guidebook, shall we? Okay. Turning inward. Keywords: connection, self-discovery, navigating inner landscapes. Inside this veil of bone and flesh, I lay my soul to sleep. All the truths within thy breath have come to greet me. There is a new, more enlightened version of yourself that is waiting to be discovered. Wow, I just got goosebumps. Yeah, there's really a leveling up energy that I'm getting from this reading. And I think, because the assumptions are all based, there's some sort of immaturity here. And I'm not trying to call you out or even this person, but there's something like, there's a different way to be. Do you know what I mean? There's a different foundations for your relationships in your life to be built on, and I'm really getting the sense that you are ready to look at that square in the face. So kudos to you. That's sort of huge. It's not sort of huge, it's absolutely huge. Okay, so there's a new, more enlightened version of yourself that is waiting to be discovered. This new you has learned and grown over the years, so much so that you may not feel as aligned to your previous goals. Dreams can and often will shift and change with time. Your task is to remain connected to your inner landscape, the part of you that always knows what you need at any given moment. Your inner self will help you discover new talents, intentions, and beliefs that will better serve you as you continue this journey. This message is amplified for you if you have also pulled the ceremony card. Turning inward brings an additional message you may be holding on too tightly to an outdated idea of what your life should be. There are many different ways to experience success. Do not allow others or social conditioning to dictate what is right for you. Being connected to your inner, most authentic being helps you develop a better sense of self. You will be better prepared to defend your choices when you know your worth and who you are on the most fundamental level. Wow. What a powerful way to end this particular reading. Thank you so much for tuning in. Once again, just getting immensely positive vibes from you as a person from this reading. So I really encourage you to get the support you need, get the resources you need to, do whatever you need to do so that you can face whatever you need to face square on, so that more and more you can liberate yourself from burden and be willing and able to accept the magic that is you, to be willing and able to receive the gifts that are yours, to be willing and able to give the gifts that are yours as well in the form of your work and your service and your art forms, whatever they may be. So thank you so much for being you, and thank you so much for tuning in.